Hello, everyone. Ron Callis here with One Firefly for another episode of Automation Unplugged. Today is, what is today? Today's Wednesday, August 9th. It's 12:45 p.m. here on the East Coast. Got started a little bit later than desired. Had a few technical problems, as happen on occasion when you're recording live. But we got through it, and we're here now, and I'm very excited to bring you folks my guest, a longtime friend and customer of One Firefly, and really a leading figure in our industry, both the home automation industry or the custom integration space, as well as the security industry, and that is Greg Simmons from Sentry. How you doing, Greg?
Great, Ron. Thanks for having me today.
I appreciate you taking time, and for everyone out there, appreciate you watching, and please share this content. I have to get that out of the way. Greg and I was just reading some of the comments or the notes that we were going to put on the Facebook stream as far as the description, and of course we got into a quick debate on whether it's Las Vegas, Nevada, or Nevada. And Greg, what's the right answer?
Absolutely Nevada.
Nevada.
Yeah.
Is that right? Nevada?
It is definitely Nevada.
It's definitely. So there's no debate. Is that what that is? There's no debate.
No debate.
No debate. All right. Well, if Greg says it, there it is. All right. So, Greg, thank you very kindly for taking some time out of your busy day. Excited to have you on, and let's jump right into it. We're going to explore a little bit about your background, like to talk about your business and kind of the long vision with you looking forward, what you see coming down the road for our space. But before we go there, can you tell my audience just a little bit about yourself? How'd you get started in the automation and the security space? What brought you into it?
It's a pretty interesting story. It started a long time ago. In 1989, I think January of 1989 to be exact, I was an incoming freshman at UNLV, and I needed a part-time job. And one of my fraternity brothers had told me about this small security company that was starting to monitor accounts in Las Vegas, actually not far from campus. I went in and I interviewed. I was the very first person they interviewed to start this central station. They only had about 70 accounts. Sentry only had about 70 accounts. Someone else, a guard service, was monitoring those few accounts at the beginning. It was back when you actually had a receiver with roll tape. So yeah, I'm kind of dating myself. But I came in, spoke to the owner, and he liked, I think, what I was hopefully going to bring to the table for him. And he hired me not only as the first central station operator, but he said, listen, if you could fill this with your fraternity brothers 24/7, I'll make you the manager. I got out of the meeting. I called my dad. I said, well, I got a job, the first one I tried for, and I go, believe it or not, I'm the manager. And my dad said that company's in serious trouble.
Now, what does that mean that you were brought in to run the monitoring station? I'm not familiar with that lingo. Can you help me out and help folks watching? What does that mean?
Yeah, so, from a traditional security standpoint, a traditional security company standpoint, you need to monitor these accounts 24/7. We were just getting into starting the central station. And keep in mind, we were competing with companies like ADT and a very large local company in Las Vegas called Alarmco. And our goal was to really gain the accounts through the builder relationships, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But the fact is, we had to have that thing up and running 24/7, and it was my responsibility to hire the people, get the equipment set up, and get it started. And with the help of the two owners, we did that, and we did it successfully. We were able to staff it, strangely enough, with my fraternity brothers. It's a bit scary, but it did work. They, strangely enough, they basically referred to it as Sigma Chi Sentry for a while, because we were basically responsible for the safety and security of our clients. But it was a good group of guys, and we did a good job, and we built a ton of accounts. And then I guess we can talk a little bit more how it progressed from there. But that's where it started, and it was in the times where literally you had a pull card for the account, and you had a roll tape coming in with the phone signal telling you what account it was. The pull card had to be pulled out to let you know what zone was going off and what the corresponding zone was. So it was pretty remedial, but that's the way it was done back in the day. And we did it successfully, and we took great care of our customer base.
How did you transition from there? I know you transitioned at some point from that role. Did it go directly into sales? Because then you further, you and I were chatting, and there was a buyout at some point. How did that progression happen?
So the progression from there, I was in the central station for about a year, got it up and running. It was running smoothly. And I had the opportunity, just really between my sophomore and junior year of college, to go into sales. The owner did want me to do a few other things. I went into the field. I learned about project management. Our company was solely built on builder contracts. We were one of the first companies in the country to actually go after the developer and the builder. So when we signed a contract, it wasn't signing one client up. In a couple cases in our business, it was signing 1,600 houses and customers up. And what we did was we established the contract with the builder, put a security system in every house, and the monitoring was paid through the homeowners association. So in several cases, we were getting one check from the homeowners association. They were charging through the homeowners association fees, and part of that was the monitoring for us.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely want to dive into more on the builder subject. I know there's a lot of people that you've piqued their interest, and we do have some folks watching. So if you're out there, thank you for watching. And if you have questions for Greg, please don't be shy. Type in the questions into the comment section there on Facebook, and we'll get those over to Greg real time. And if you are out there, please share this feed. There's a lot of folks in the industry that would benefit from hearing from Greg's wisdom. So please do that. Greg, tell us today at Eagle Sentry, what is your role in the company? I mean, what's a normal day in the business look like for you?
So let me just finish up with the story of how it transitioned. Then I went into sales, and I was handling multiple builder accounts. My now business partner, Ray Latisick, handled most of the other accounts. So between the two of us, we were handling most of the sales, bringing on new builders. So really, I was also in charge of business development. We both were, and building these accounts. So in 1996, we performed a leverage buyout. The way it worked was the accounts, which we had built 16,000 accounts in just 7 years, which for anybody who knows about RMR, it was substantial. I'll just say that the company sold in the multi-millions of dollars.
Did you sell out at that point, or I mean, I would imagine even at that point you're worth a nice multiple of 7,000 accounts. My goodness.
Well, I was. We were not owners at the time, okay. So up until 1996, we were building the accounts. We had a gentleman's agreement, which in this day and age is kind of crazy. But we had a gentleman's agreement with the owners that when they sold these accounts, which we knew that's what they were building to do, back in those days, each account was selling for about a 36 multiple. So just take that multiple for what that account would bring in a year and multiply that, in a month, and multiply that time 36 to 38 times is what each account was worth. So they sold the accounts, but at that time, they were going to get out. But we had all these builder clients and all this ongoing business, and they really had interest in keeping that going. I mean, it would have been, you kind of would have got to the point where you'd have to move out of town because, all of a sudden you're not taking care of all these customers. So my business partner, Ray, and I, we negotiated a deal where the little money we got, which was very small from those alarm sales, they honored their gentleman's agreement, which was fantastic for us. I was only 28 at the time. We used that money to, basically for working capital, and they held a loan for us at about 50 cents on the dollar for all the equipment and everything else in the office because they were instant millionaires and weren't overly concerned about the rest of the stuff. So we took it from there. We had a non-compete in gaming surveillance, which was a big part of what we were doing. We did a lot of cameras for the casinos. But we then got into the audiovisual business, and we started doing more than just security, central vacuum systems, and intercom systems, which is basically all we did at the time. So we continued doing business with the builders. We had enough working capital moving forward, but we had to now start rebuilding that recurring revenue base from scratch. The big issue was whether the company was viable without all that recurring revenue, and we were able to prove that it was.
So from 1996, when you did that leveraged buyout deal, your account went from 7,000 in RMR back to zero, and you've since had 20 years to build that back, more than 20 years now. Where do you, is that public information? Can you share where you're at now?
It's not. We have, thousands of customers, but things also changed a little bit. That all those huge communities that were being built, we hit the boom at the right time. So for a while, we had to be, Protection One bought the accounts from the previous owners. So we became beholden to Protection One for a while. We were a Protection One dealer. We actually had to buy the name back of Eagle Sentry from them. Ray and I did that by selling our accounts to them for several years. So we haven't been generating our own recurring revenue since then, but we, in about 2000, we started building up again. So it was at a much slower clip, but we did have the continued housing boom that helped tremendously, and we've been building accounts ever since.
Now, your idea back then to go after the builder, and you had stated that was not common practice. Whose idea was that, and who were you looking at in terms of modeling that business model and that structure? I mean, if that was ahead of its time, where did that knowledge or insight come from?
The previous owner, the guy that founded the company, he just kind of said, really, why are we going to go out and compete after the fact? If we go to the builder, and he had a relationship with one of the biggest builders in the valley, that builder said to him, listen, I'd rather just have you pre-wiring for everything. We understand the importance of security. We understand the importance of at least a pre-wire in every house. And that's how it started. And then what we realized was we basically were eliminating the competition. It was done. We had the contract. It was built in. And in a lot of cases, the monitoring was already built in. So we sort of blindsided the larger companies that were used to marketing and advertising to the client after the fact. And it was significant.
So today, it's fair to say, your revenues are published. I know that you guys made the most recent CEPro 100 list at 27. What were the published revenues for Eagle Sentry?
Well, the published revenues were about 8.4, and we're tracking to actually over 10 million this year.
10 million. And so that's comprised of a component coming from RMR and a component coming from your custom integration work. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Now, and I'm speaking from One Firefly's experience as well, that RMR really changes everything when you have that stable cash coming in addition to the fixed price work of the CI business. Would you agree that that's a pretty fantastic thing to have for a business?
It completely changes the dynamic, especially in the CEDIA world. If you have this RMR, the security, part of it's dramatically different. I mean, it puts you in such a power position over your competitors. Basically, after we took over and started building accounts again, we got back to the point where you basically wake up in the morning and the expenses are covered. So I make that sound easy, and I totally understand the struggles that the CEDIA channels had. The problem with security is it's become extremely competitive. A lot of companies have driven it, the revenue to the bottom, driven what they're charging for components and products, plus the DIY element. So when people say to me, listen, Greg, we're trying to get the security division going, but it's a struggle, I get it. The thing we had volume. At Eagle Sentry's peak in about 2007, 2008, before the housing market crashed, we were wiring 4,900 houses a year. So the volume was there to be able to, build a good recurring revenue base. Not saying that we were selling, obviously recurring revenue to all of those houses, but a portion of those. And a lot of the traditional companies, the licensing in your state is challenging. Your insurance skyrockets because now you're a security company. There are a lot of drawbacks, but we're now as an industry working on other forms of recurring revenue. I'm extremely excited about some of the things we're hearing this year and we're going to hear into next year. And
can you go into more detail? I mean, that's where I wanted to take it. There's the angle of security and security monitoring, and I'd love to hear your high level. What does an integrator need to do? I know state licensing is different, I believe, around the country, so maybe it's just at a high level. What does an integrator need to do to start exploring that path of recurring revenue? And then these other paths, which would be, I'm assuming you're thinking of more of the service or maintenance contract side angle for integrators. I'd love to hear you talk about your experiences or your position on that as well.
Correct. Obviously, the security recurring revenue is still king. The reason it's king is because on the open market, those accounts have value, and people were, consistently signing them up for a period of multiple years. Right? Some of the experts on the security side say that they'd like to see a 5-year contract. We traditionally do a 3-year contract, but in this day and age, with the service providers and everybody talking about month to month and no contract, it's a battle. So they're still very valuable. Right now, anybody who has security contracts that are properly signed in a market that has what they consider quality accounts. They generally look at the base price of houses and kind of what market you're in to determine the quality of those accounts. But if they determine right now that those accounts are quality, they will pay you a 40 multiple. So in some cases, if you're charging $35 a month, you're talking about accounts that are worth $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a piece. And because they've been doing it for so long, people sometimes sell and finish those transactions in a matter of days. So the challenge we have in the CEDIA side, if you have some volume and if your licensing issues in your particular state or the challenges to get licensed are not that bad, and really your insurance company understands that you're still first and foremost in the CEDIA channel and you don't have an insurance element, security is highly recommended to pursue, and there's a ton of us pursuing it. It's multiplied dramatically over the years, and a lot of people have called and asked us here at Eagle Sentry, how do you do it? And we've helped a lot of people, and some people are doing it extremely successfully. So they've basically been building up what could be a great retirement, which in our business is sometimes hard to do. The problem you have with maintenance contracts is maintenance contracts really have no value on the open market. It's not like you can just transfer that to another central station. The maintenance contract means someone locally there has to go out and clean those cameras 4 times a year or whatever it might be. So there's very little value except to the owner if there's profit in that maintenance contract. The recurring revenue that we're all pursuing, obviously on the service side, and to be able to monitor the network and to be able to monitor the components in the system, that's coming, and I think we're going to be very successful at that. The issue is how do we create value there, value for the accounts outside of just the recurring revenue it's generating. So I think the industry is working on that. I think we're the security world is taking note, and I hope that we over the next several years can figure out how CEDIA CEDIA channel owners can also be able to secure a retirement and have something to sell, and it's I'm very excited about it.
So that's an interesting perspective regarding the premise of putting the technologies and or the software in place that I know a lot of the CI space is trying to do right now. You know, companies like Domots and Ahiji they have products and software that allow an integrator to go and monitor the devices in the home and make sure they're stable and online. And so they can, from your perspective, they can go in and do that and get an RMR stream going, which is really strong for the business to have that stable cash flow. But in terms of that, then the next step being valuable on the marketplace, where someone would say, "Great, you've got 100 accounts on a service or a monitoring plan." There's no buyers for that yet. Is that what you're saying? So whereas security, there's clearly a proven multi-decade market of a lot of acquisitions going on there. On the service and maintenance contract, that precedent is not in place?
That's correct. I mean, really where the value would come is somebody internally or somebody looking to buy that company. It actually has value because, one, it's going to increase the net profitability of that individual company. And someone looking to buy that company, the reason a lot of people don't want to just come in and buy your audiovisual integration company is because they see it as buying some old trucks, and they see it as taking on almost liability in some cases. So if we can show more profitability, one, it just becomes more attractive to someone who wants to buy that business. Plus, if they're looking at buying the business and then building on that recurring revenue that's there, that recurring revenue is there, those contracts are signed, and that buyer, I think it's going to bring way more buyers to the table in our industry, like maybe businesses that have that now, because of that recurring revenue. Even if it's not valuable on the open market, it's extremely valuable to that business by itself. And I think that's super important, because right now when we try to sell the business as we're retiring, whatever it might be, it's very challenging. But with a recurring revenue base you built up, they're going to pay you for that. And there might be an opportunity where we could get to the levels that security's paying, because I think where it's moving is as security goes to DIY and the prices come down, what we're going to do on our side is going to be very new. We have to create value to the customer, and then which a lot of these people are creating products that allow us to do that. We have to create value for the customer. If the customer is willing to stay and continue to pay those recurring revenue fees over time, that's where you start to see the value. What happened in the security world is once you had a monitored security system, even if you don't even turn your alarm on, which a lot of our customers don't, it's a peace of mind thing. And they're willing to pay for it because of that one time they might need it, or the 2 times a year they go on vacation, they're willing to pay it. We need to work as an industry to show value in these other things we can do, and to be able to have them continue to pay.
Do you mind sharing with our audience what some of the products or technologies that you're looking at that are assisting or aiding your ability to offer maintenance contracts or service contracts to clients from a technology monitoring standpoint?
Well, I mean, a lot of us in the industry know the products are out there. There are multiple companies that are doing it. I believe probably multiple companies that are coming. And I think what you have to do is you have to figure out which of those products, whatever it might be, fits into your ecosystem. And the people that are developing strong platforms, I think it's very important that you choose what you're comfortable with. I'm not really here to talk specific products necessarily.
You can't knock me for trying to get you to name drop some people.
Appreciate that. No.
I don't want you to upset any vendors or manufacturers, of course.
Let's just say that there's a lot of great companies in our industry that are doing great things. And I really think people need to attend CEDIA this year. And I think people really need to pay attention, because there's already been some announced. But you're going to see a surge there. I think we've been talking about it for years, and I think it's coming, and I feel good about the industry. And listen, when we get right back down to it, the recurring revenue, I'll just throw out a number at you. I think we were bringing in, before they sold those accounts, almost $440 $40,000 a month. The costs were 75 grand. I mean, these guys were in their late 20s, early 30s. We can recreate that, and we can do that in this industry because we're going to have a captive audience with a new service that doesn't have juggernauts in it yet. Okay, they will be, and I think we all need to pay attention to that.
I think that you know about something the rest of us don't know about. Is there some stuff around the corner maybe that Greg's been tipped off to? I saw a little smile there.
A lot of people are working on good things, and I think we're all going to learn about those. But I have nothing to talk about in specifics.
Well, just speaking about CEDIA. CEDIA is around the corner. It's August 9th today, and CEDIA is September 5th. They're in San Diego. It's biggest event of the year for us at One Firefly. It's our biggest marketing and promotional spend, and great time to hang out with our clients and future clients. So I know I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be my 18th show officially in a row.
Nice.
Yeah. So for you, Greg, what are some of you've mentioned some of the monitoring technologies that you are currently using or you're looking forward to hearing more about at the show. What are some of the other vendors or topics that you are looking forward to being talked about or presented at CEDIA? Anything that's top of mind that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, so I think from my personal standpoint, and I think what our company is looking forward to, I believe we're going to see some announcements. If you look at what's happened with acquisitions just in this last year, just since the last CEDIA, I mean, it's crazy. And I think we have to pay attention to what the bigger picture of these larger corporations that are getting into our business. I mean, look at the presence last year. We have to pay attention to Amazon. We have to pay attention to all of these entities. We have to pay attention to what Apple's doing, and they understand the importance of our industry. So I'm really looking, first and foremost, to see how these people that have recently become interested in our business are looking at the way I believe they might be responsible for molding it. So I think we need to pay attention to the big players. We need to look at what's happening with these acquisitions, and because I think it's going to affect us all.
I agree. I think it's great to always look forward and keep your eyes wide open. I'll just keep you on here for another couple of minutes, Greg. I appreciate you being very generous with your time. I know you're a very busy man.
No problem.
You are a member of a buying group. You're a member of ProSource.
That is correct.
And can you share with the audience here why you think a buying group is something to be considered or that integrators should look at, and maybe what type of integrators should look at a buying group, and what's the reason you decided to focus on ProSource?
So strangely enough, we fought the buying groups for years. Like during the boom years, I kind of look back and I kick myself a bit, because I think of what could have been in regards to savings and maybe learning together as a group. So I fought it. It was actually the recession that caused us and almost forced me to look at other ways to save and to become more efficient. And I met with the ProSource rep. I had heard good things. I knew, at that time, if there were kind of let's say a juggernaut for a particular buying group in your market, you really didn't, in some cases, you didn't have the opportunity to join that buying group. So I looked at the buying groups that were available, and I met the rep from ProSource, a guy named Chad Evans. If anybody knows Tall Chad, he's an amazing guy, and he laid it out to me, and we looked at the products that we were currently selling, and we talked about the potential savings. We talked about the educational things, and it was the right fit for me. When I met the powers that be at ProSource, and I saw the companies that were members, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the ProSource member companies, a lot of these people are some of my best friends now. It's a little bit more than just a buying group. It's an educational thing, but it's really synergistic in the way we've all learned from each other. Best thing I ever did in business by far. And I think you need to see where your products align or if there's adjustments you can make. But the real good thing is to meet the people and to talk to the people that are responsible. And I think you'll find, the group that works for you. But ProSource being the largest buying group gives us power, real power as a group. It gave us the capability to make money selling televisions, video again, which at the time was almost non-existent. And I just can't tell you the camaraderie that I've built with those people, but it was the right choice.
All right, appreciate that. Two closing questions. One is, for that business, that integrator out there that's maybe a 3 to 5 man shop, maybe they're around $750,000 to $1 million in revenue. What's your advice? And maybe they're just a couple of, maybe 3 to 5 years into the business. What's your advice to them to help them that you wish someone had told you when you started? What advice would you give them?
I had the advantage that we took over a business that was doing well, that had become a little bit of a brand. So it's one of those questions that, has eluded me a bit because we didn't struggle, I think, like some people might starting off. I think that we're in a competitive world. I would say that, one, look at what recurring revenue sources you can start out with. Look at how, because it can make you a lot more powerful. Look to, and props to you, but One Firefly built us a great website and a social media presence, and it's been very helpful. But I think you have to be very careful in your expenses. A lot of companies over the years have built too big a showroom, and you have to think about what you're willing to spend. You have to try to balance it out. A lot of people will make a mistake of making too large an investment. You have to think about, even if I get to this net profitability, I don't want to start something that's going to take me 8 or 12 years just to start becoming profitable. So I think there has to be a balance. And really the way to do that is to come to these events. You've got to be at CEPro. I believe that, once you get into a certain level, the Total Tech Summit, I believe that these groups, the buying groups especially, are where your peers are that have been through it. And, some things are regional, right? We're in the Southwest. So things are done a little differently here maybe than the Northeast or the Southeast. And learning from others is the best. Anything you can do to learn, you may have that moment that prevents you from making a mistake.
I second that. I think that's a great perspective to give, and that is leverage your peers. Leverage that there are peers. You're not the only one out here fighting this battle. There's people that have come before you. Put yourself in a space where you can learn from them. Be humble, check your ego, and don't be afraid to ask questions. That would be my addition to your answer. Last thing, Greg, you had this really cool project. I know I followed it on CEPro, this Alex Tagliani, I might be saying his name right, Alex Tagliani project. And you actually introduced me to this guy as a race car driver a year or two ago. I don't remember exactly, maybe at a ProSource event, you introduced me to him. And anyway, this is a famous race car driver, super cool guy. Watch your Facebook feed. You're always out hanging out with him around the country, around North America at different races. And you designed and I believe installed the technology in his home, and you fully documented it for CEPro. Can you? Why did you do that? What were you hoping? Because you're bringing that, at least from what I did see, to the trade. You're bringing that project to the trade. What was your ambition there in terms of sharing that experience with everyone?
Well, twofold. So one of the things that happened early on here in Las Vegas is a lot of professional athletes were moving here because of the no state tax. The big joke was the two attractive places with no state tax, no offense to anybody else out there, but were Florida and Nevada. And we were seeing this influx. I had a very close friend who was a world champion. His name was Jimmy Vassar. who lived here in Vegas, and we did his home. And then I met a lot of the other race car drivers that were moving to Nevada. Again, we built this amazing super speedway here, and a lot of the race car drivers were moving here. So I did Paul Tracy's house, I did Patrick Carpentier's house, Jimmy Vassar's house, and then Alex Tagliani's, a couple of houses for him here. We became very close friends. So really the article was more about, one, I was helping him out, which I've always done. We were always his technology provider. Now, I can't take credit for the actual install, okay? There's a great company called HomeSync in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, that did the install. They absolutely flawlessly installed the large home, the Dolby Atmos home theater that we designed. But they with our discussions, they designed most of the rest of the system. And it was kind of a neat partnership. We did the same thing for Chris Letang from the Pittsburgh Penguins. Similar thing. It was on the cover of CEPro. And I helped design the whole thing, but a great company but crossing borders and doing installs is very challenging. So you have to have good partnerships. But you really it's about how communication. If you can communicate and have a job come out as well as these jobs did in another country, you can really, really provide good communication within your own market. And I think you learn a lot from that. So, yes, there's a personal, I love marketing, and I love to have articles and things to share with our customers. And so the selfish part is that Egocentric gets credit for these jobs, and we've kind of been
good.
trying
It's good PR.
It's great PR, yeah. But they have to go well. I fortunately got to go up and see both of these homes, and I just was at Alex's house a few weeks ago, and the theater's amazing. I believe it's coming out in the September or October issue of CEPro in the magazine, and you'll be able to read more about the whole story. But he's an excellent friend, and it was really great working on the project with him and his wife.
Well, I'll speak on behalf of the industry and everyone watching. Thank you for sharing that project and that experience. And I think we all learned a lot from it and appreciated, or at least enjoyed watching the project come full circle, and seeing Alex, the homeowner, on camera talking about wire and cables and speakers. Yeah. I got a kick out of that. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's a character, and it's a different perspective, and I think it's a perspective that we all need to see. We need to understand, what's in the minds of these clients, and I think when you put them on camera like that, they almost describe and tell you things that maybe they were thinking but never really talked to you about when you did the job. So it was an interesting perspective, and it was a learning experience for everybody, and the end result is this amazing system, and the theater's great. You'll see the photos, but has all of his racing uniforms over all the years, the pole position stuff at the Indy 500, and all the helmets, all on mannequins around the entire perimeter of the theater, and the photos will be spectacular.
Wow, I can't wait to see that. Well, Greg, we are going to wrap this up, sir. We've been on for about 38 minutes.
Okay.
So just run a couple of minutes over, but again, thank you again, Greg, for sharing with our audience, and I look forward to seeing you in person here in a few weeks out in San Diego.
That's right, Ron. Thanks. I look forward to seeing you there, and thanks for everybody for taking a little time out.
Awesome. Well, gang, thanks again for watching another episode of Automation Unplugged. This is Ron Callis with One Firefly signing off. And I look forward to seeing you on the flip side. We'll see you next week with our next episode. Thanks again for watching, everyone.